Ravi had always been a dedicated father. After losing his wife, Priya, in a car accident, life had not been the same. His world seemed to come crashing down, leaving him alone to raise his daughter, Mira. The house was quiet, empty, and his heart was heavy with grief. But time, as it always does, moved on, and so did Ravi. 2 years passed before he even considered the idea of love again. He met Naina through mutual friends, and she seemed to fit perfectly into his life. She was beautiful, kind, and gentle. Naina had a calming presence that Ravi found comforting. She shared his love for quiet evenings, and for the first time in years, Ravi felt like he could breathe again. But there was a problem. Mira. She was just 6 years old, but her instincts were sharp. From the first moment Naina stepped into their home, Mira became distant. She would watch Naina closely, and whenever Ravi wasn't around, she would frown and retreat to her room. Ravi thought it was normal. After all, it was a big change for a little girl to accept a new mother figure. But deep down, something didn't sit right with him either. Naina, on the other hand, was always polite to Mira, making her little snacks and playing games with her whenever she had the chance. But Mira seemed uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure how to react to this woman who was now living in their home. She never smiled around Naina, always keeping her distance. One afternoon, Ravi came home early from work to find Naina in the kitchen, humming to herself as she made lunch. Mira was sitting at the table, quietly eating her cereal, her eyes fixed on her new stepmother. Ravi noticed the tension in the air, a strange coldness that seemed to hang between them. "Mira, sweetie, how was school today?" Ravi asked, trying to lighten the mood. Mira looked up slowly, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment. She didn't answer right away, and when she finally did, her voice was soft and unsure. "It was fine," she said, barely above a whisper. Ravi smiled, but he couldn't ignore the troubled look in his daughter's eyes. She seemed so withdrawn, like she was hiding something from him. Ravi assumed it was just the adjustment period, but a small voice inside him told him to pay more attention. Later that evening, as they sat down for dinner, Mira refused to sit next to Naina, which wasn't unusual. She always seemed to find an excuse to sit as far away from her as possible. Ravi tried to encourage Mira to bond with Naina, but his daughter remained stubborn. She didn't want to have anything to do with her new stepmother. "Mira, why are you acting this way?" Ravi finally asked, his voice a little firmer than he intended. "Naina is a good woman. You should give her a chance." Mira looked up at her father, her face a mix of confusion and fear. She shook her head slowly. "She's not good, Daddy," Mira whispered, her voice trembling. Ravi's heart skipped a beat. He leaned closer, trying to understand. "What do you mean, sweetie? Why don't you like her?" Mira stared at him with wide, worried eyes. "I don't know. She's not like Mommy," Mira said, her voice cracking as she spoke the words. "I don't trust her." Ravi didn't know how to respond. He looked at Naina, who was sitting quietly across from them, her face expressionless. She was watching Mira, her smile tight. Ravi couldn't read her expression. He wasn't sure why, but something about Naina's calmness made him uneasy. He brushed the feeling aside, telling himself it was just his nerves from adjusting to the changes. "I know it's hard, Mira," Ravi said, trying to reassure her, "but Naina is here to stay. You have to try and get along with her." Mira didn't say anything more, but her silence spoke volumes. Ravi could tell that something deeper was troubling his daughter, but as much as he wanted to understand, he didn't know where to begin. As days went by, Ravi tried his best to bring some normalcy to their lives. He would take Mira out for walks in the park, or they'd spend the evening playing board games, hoping to lift her spirits. He even planned a family trip to the zoo, hoping the change of scenery would help. But no matter what he did, Mira's behavior stayed the same. Meanwhile, Naina remained as calm and composed as ever, but Ravi began to notice small things that raised questions. For instance, when Mira was asleep, Nana would sometimes stand in the doorway of her room, staring at her for long moments. Ravi tried to ignore it, thinking he was just being paranoid. After all, Nana was a loving woman, right? But one evening, something happened that made Ravi stop in his tracks. He came home to find Nana making tea in the kitchen. He walked in and smiled, but then he noticed Mira standing in the doorway, her hands shaking. She had tears in her eyes as she stared at Nana. "Mira, what's wrong?" Ravi asked, his heart pounding. Mira looked up at him, her face pale. She stepped back and whispered, "I don't like her, Daddy. Don't let her make the tea." Ravi froze. Why was she so scared? Mira was always afraid of things, but this was different. She wasn't just scared of Nana's presence. She was terrified of the tea. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt the urge to protect his daughter. Something wasn't right, and he was starting to feel it in his bones. Ravi's heart was heavy as he watched Mira stand in the doorway, her small hands trembling as she stared at Nana in silence. The look on her face was one he had never seen before. It wasn't just fear, it was pure dread. "Mira, sweetheart," Ravi said softly, trying to comfort her. "It's just tea. There's nothing to be afraid of." But Mira's eyes widened, and she shook her head vigorously. Her voice was barely above a whisper as she spoke. "Please, Daddy, don't let her make the tea." The words hit Ravi like a punch in the gut. Why would Mira be so frightened of something as simple as tea? Was it just the anxiety of her new stepmother, or was there something more to it? Ravi glanced at Nana, who was standing in the kitchen, her back to them, calmly pouring hot water into the teapot. She didn't seem bothered by the situation at all. In fact, she seemed almost too calm. Ravi didn't know why, but something about her serene demeanor made his unease grow. "Mira, why don't you come sit with me in the living room?" Ravi suggested, his voice trying to sound soothing, though his own worry was creeping in. "We'll talk about it." But Mira didn't move. She remained frozen in place, staring at the kitchen with wide eyes, as if waiting for something terrible to happen. Ravi felt a tightness in his chest and moved closer to her. "Mira, please," Ravi said gently. "What are you afraid of?" At last, Mira spoke, but her voice trembled so much that Ravi had to lean in to hear her words. "I heard her, Daddy. I heard her talking to someone in the kitchen last night. I don't know who it was, but she was whispering. She told them that she's going to make you drink the tea. She said it's the only way to get rid of me. I don't want her to hurt you, Daddy. I don't want her to hurt us." Ravi's stomach dropped. His mind raced, trying to piece together what Mira had just said. He knew that children often had vivid imaginations, but this felt different. Mira was not the type of child to make up stories. She had always been a quiet, observant little girl, and Ravi had never seen her so distraught. Without thinking, Ravi moved quickly to the kitchen, his mind racing. Nana was still there, calmly stirring the tea as if nothing was wrong. Ravi felt a chill run down his spine as he approached her. "Nana," he said, his voice sharp. "What is going on here? Mira is terrified of you making this tea. She's convinced that you're going to do something to hurt me." Nana turned to him, her expression unreadable. She set the spoon down on the counter and wiped her hands on her apron, a small smile playing on her lips. "Oh, Ravi, don't be silly. Mira is just adjusting to having me around. Children sometimes have these fears. There's nothing to worry about. I would never hurt you or her." But Ravi wasn't convinced. He didn't know what it was, but something in Nana's voice, something in the way she spoke, sent a shiver down his spine. It was as if she was hiding something from him. And the way she said those words, "I would never hurt you," felt too rehearsed, too practiced. Mira's words echoed in his mind. She said it's the only way to get rid of me. What was Nana hiding? "I don't know what's going on," Ravi muttered, more to himself than to her. "But I'm not going to sit back and let my daughter be afraid in her own home." Nana's smile faded slightly, but she remained calm. I'm sure you're just being overprotective. It's a big change for all of us. But we'll figure it out, Ravi. But Ravi wasn't so sure. The more he thought about it, the more unsettled he became. Why would Mira say that Naina was going to get rid of her? The whole situation felt wrong, like he was missing something important. Ravi decided to take a step back for the moment and calm his nerves. But as he turned to leave the kitchen, Naina spoke again. "Don't you worry, Ravi," she said softly, almost too softly. "Everything will be fine." Her words hung in the air like a warning, but Ravi didn't fully understand what she meant. He glanced back at her, a cold chill creeping down his spine as he saw the same unsettling calmness in her eyes. Something was off. Something wasn't right about Naina. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being played, but he couldn't quite put his finger on why. Later that evening, as Ravi and Mira sat together on the couch, Ravi tried to reassure her. "Sweetie, I know you're scared, but you don't have to worry. Naina isn't going to hurt us. We just need to give it time, and everything will work out." But Mira wasn't convinced. She stayed close to her father, her small hand clutching his shirt. She stared at the doorway to the kitchen, her eyes filled with fear. "I don't want her here, Daddy," Mira whispered. "I don't trust her." Ravi's heart sank as he looked at his daughter. She was scared, and deep down, he knew that Mira wasn't the kind of child who would make up such stories. But he didn't know what to do. Naina was doing everything she could to be kind to Mira. She was patient, loving, and understanding. But what if that was just an act? What if Naina was hiding something dark, something that could hurt them both? Ravi knew that he had to find out the truth before it was too late. The following days passed in a blur for Ravi. Despite his attempts to ease Mira's fears, the tension in the house only seemed to grow. Mira became more withdrawn, often retreating to her room or clinging to Ravi whenever Naina was near. It was as if an invisible barrier had formed between them, a barrier that neither Ravi nor Naina seemed to notice. But Ravi couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in the pit of his stomach. Something about Naina didn't sit right with him. It wasn't just Mira's fear. It was the little things, the way Naina seemed too perfect, too accommodating. She never raised her voice, never showed frustration, always wore that serene smile, and always tried to put on an image of the perfect stepmother. But it felt like a mask, something that she was hiding behind. The more Ravi thought about it, the more the pieces didn't fit. He had known Naina for only a few months, but in those few months, there had been odd moments. Times when she would look at him strangely, or when she would say something that felt off. But he pushed those thoughts aside, telling himself that he was just being paranoid. After all, she was his wife, and Mira's mother was no longer in the picture. She was supposed to be their new family. Yet, the doubts lingered, and Mira's warnings about the tease still haunted him. The more Ravi tried to push them away, the more they resurfaced. He couldn't ignore the fact that his daughter had been terrified for no apparent reason. And now, that growing unease in his gut told him that Mira's fear wasn't a simple child's imagination. One afternoon, after a long day of work, Ravi arrived home later than usual. As he walked through the front door, he noticed an unusual silence. Normally, the house was filled with the sound of Mira playing or Naina humming in the kitchen. But today, there was nothing. The silence felt oppressive, almost suffocating. "Mira." Ravi called out, walking toward the living room. No answer. "Mira." He called again, his voice a little louder now. Still no response. Ravi's heart began to race. He walked upstairs to Mira's room, knocking softly on the door before opening it. To his surprise, the room was empty. He stepped in, looking around for any sign of where she might have gone. It wasn't like Mira to just disappear like this, especially after the things she had said about Naina. Panic began to crawl up his spine as he left the room and hurried downstairs to the kitchen. That's when he saw it. Naina was standing in front of the stove, calmly stirring something in a large pot. But there was something strange about her posture, something off. It wasn't just the way she stood, It was the expression on her face. Blank, almost emotionless. "Where's Mira?" Ravi asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Naina didn't look up. "She's probably in her room," she replied quietly. "She's been there all day." Ravi's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't like Mira to hide in her room for hours on end. And with the unsettling silence in the house, Ravi felt that deep, gnawing fear again. Without saying another word, Ravi turned and walked quickly toward the stairs. He reached Mira's room in a few long strides, pushing the door open with more force than necessary. To his shock, Mira wasn't there. But her things were. Her books, her toys, her favorite blanket. Everything was in place, but there was no sign of Mira. Now panic truly gripped him. He ran back downstairs, this time moving quickly into the living room, the dining room, and then the backyard. Everywhere he could think of. But Mira was nowhere to be found. His breathing quickened, and he turned back to Naina, who was still standing by the stove. "Naina, where is she?" Ravi demanded, his voice rising in frustration and fear. Naina finally turned to face him, her eyes calm, but there was a coldness in them that Ravi had never seen before. "She's safe," Naina said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "She's just playing hide and seek, Ravi. Don't worry." But Ravi couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread that was pooling in his chest. He wasn't buying it. The way Naina was speaking, the way she wasn't showing the same concern he was, everything about it felt wrong. He stared at Naina for a moment, searching her face for any sign of what was really going on. The silence between them was thick, suffocating. And then, just as Ravi was about to turn and search for Mira himself, he heard something, a faint sound coming from the kitchen. It was the softest whisper, almost imperceptible, but it sent a chill running down his spine. He turned toward Naina. What was that? Naina's face remained neutral, but her eyes flickered with something dark. What was what? Ravi's heart pounded in his chest. That sound, it had been a voice, a soft whisper coming from behind the kitchen door. Without thinking, Ravi pushed past Naina and opened the door, ready to confront whatever was hidden there. But when the door swung open, the kitchen was empty. There was no one there, only the faint scent of tea still lingering in the air. But Ravi knew something wasn't right. He could feel it in his bones, and that feeling only grew stronger as he noticed the empty teacup on the counter. It was the one Naina had been preparing for him earlier. Something had happened, something terrible, and Ravi had no idea what it was. But he knew now. He had to find out what was really going on. Ravi's heart was racing as he stood in the kitchen, his mind a whirlwind of questions and fears. The cup of tea on the counter seemed to mock him. Why had Mira been so afraid of it? Why had she been so desperate to warn him? And why was Naina acting so calm, too calm, as if she wasn't the least bit concerned that her stepdaughter was missing? His instincts were telling him something wasn't right, but he didn't know where to begin. His eyes scanned the room, lingering on the teacup, then moving to the stove, the shelves, and finally, back to Naina. There was something off about her, something he couldn't quite place, but there was no time to think about that now. He had to find Mira. "Where is she, Naina?" Ravi asked again, his voice tight with fear and frustration. His mind raced with possibilities, but none of them made sense. Why is Mira missing? Naina didn't answer immediately. She just stood there, her back turned, her eyes trained on the stove as if she hadn't heard him. The quiet stretched between them like a thick, suffocating fog. Ravi's pulse quickened with each second that passed. "Naina," he said more forcefully, his patience finally snapping. "I'm not asking again. Where is Mira?" Naina finally turned to face him. Her eyes were cold now, the soft smile she always wore replaced with something darker, something sharp. For the first time since he had met her, Ravi saw a hint of something that chilled him to his core. "She's safe, Ravi," Naina replied calmly, but her voice was laced with an eerie confidence. "You don't need to worry." Ravi's skin prickled. Her words didn't match the look in her eyes. It was as if she was hiding something. Something deep and terrible. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he knew he needed to act fast. Without another word, he turned and ran toward the staircase. He had to find Mira. There was no time to waste. His daughter was out there somewhere, and she was in danger. He could feel it in the very air around him. He raced through the rooms, calling Mira's name, but there was no answer. His calls echoed through the empty house. He checked the garden, the garage, the backyard, every corner of the house he could think of, but Mira was nowhere to be found. His heart pounded in his chest. He finally stopped in the living room, breathing heavily, his mind spinning. Where could she be? He couldn't just keep running around the house. He needed answers. He needed to talk to Nana. Ravi turned back, storming into the kitchen once again. But Nana wasn't there. The kitchen door was open, and the faint sound of footsteps in the hallway caught his attention. Without thinking, he followed the sound, his heart hammering in his chest. As he reached the hallway, he saw Nana, standing in front of the guest bedroom door. She was staring at it, her body rigid, as if she was waiting for something, or someone. "Where is Mira?" Ravi asked again, his voice laced with desperation. He didn't care about being polite anymore. He needed to know the truth. Nana didn't answer. Instead, she slowly turned to him, her lips curling into a tight smile. "You won't find her in there," she said softly, almost too calmly. "You shouldn't be looking for her. It's not what you think." The hair on the back of Ravi's neck stood up. Something was very wrong. He could feel it in the air, the weight of it pressing down on him. Without another word, he pushed past Nana and opened the door to the guest bedroom. The sight inside stopped him in his tracks. The room was empty, except for a small old wooden chest sitting against the far wall. It was strange. Ravi had never noticed it before. He took a hesitant step toward it, feeling the unease in his chest grow stronger. The chest wasn't locked, but it had an eerie presence about it, as if whatever was inside had been waiting for years, hidden away, just waiting for the right moment to come out. "Ravi, don't open that." Nana's voice sounded from behind him, low and warning. But Ravi couldn't stop himself. He reached for the chest and slowly lifted the lid. What he saw inside made his blood run cold. The chest was filled with old, yellowed papers, pictures, letters, and documents that looked as if they hadn't been touched in years. And in the corner of the chest, partially hidden beneath the papers, was something else. Something small, wrapped in cloth. Ravi carefully picked it up, his hands trembling as he unraveled the fabric. What he found made his heart stop. It was a tiny old doll, dirty and worn, with its eyes wide open, as if it had been staring at something for years. But it wasn't the doll itself that terrified Ravi. It was the small piece of paper that was wedged into its hand. His fingers shook as he pulled it free and read the message written on it. "Help me, Daddy. I'm scared. Please don't trust her." Ravi's breath caught in his throat. This was Mira's handwriting. There was no doubt about it. The note was unmistakable. It was from his daughter. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. The strange silence in the house, Mira's fearful eyes, her warnings about the tea. It wasn't just a warning anymore. It was a cry for help. Nana had been hiding something, something dark, and Ravi realized with a sickening feeling in his stomach that she had been hiding his daughter too. He turned quickly, his eyes locking with Nana's. "You've been lying to me," Ravi said, his voice shaking with fury. "Where is she? Where is Mira?" Nana took a slow step back, her face pale. Her smile had faded, and in its place was something far more sinister. "You should have listened to your daughter," Nana whispered. "But it's too late now." Ravi's heart pounded loudly in his ears as he stood frozen, staring at Nana. The world around him seemed to shrink, the walls closing in. His mind struggled to process the weight of the moment, what had just been revealed. Mira's note had been clear, but why had Nana been hiding this from him? And where was his daughter now? You shouldn't have opened that chest, Naina said, her voice low and menacing. There was no hint of concern for Mira in her words, only a chilling sense of finality. You'll regret it. Ravi felt a surge of anger rush through him, hot and furious. He had no time for her cryptic warnings. His only priority now was finding Mira and getting her out of whatever twisted situation Naina had put her in. Where is she, Naina? Ravi demanded, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and rage. Tell me where my daughter is. But Naina simply shook her head slowly, her expression unreadable. She took a step back, as if distancing herself from him, her hands folding together like a prayer. There was no fear in her eyes, only a cold, almost detached calmness. She's gone, Ravi, Naina said, almost too calmly. You weren't supposed to find out. You weren't supposed to see her note. But now that you have, it's over. Ravi's stomach twisted in horror. Gone. What did she mean by that? Mira couldn't be gone. She couldn't. He had to find her, no matter what it took. You're lying. He yelled, his voice hoarse with desperation. He couldn't understand her, couldn't make sense of her words. Where is she? Tell me now. But Naina's gaze didn't waver. Instead, she smiled softly, as though this was all some kind of twisted game to her. I told you, Ravi, Naina murmured, her voice like ice. You should have listened to your daughter. Mira knew what I was capable of. She knew what I had planned. And now she's... Naina paused, her smile widening as she met Ravi's gaze. She's safer than you think. Ravi felt as though the ground was slipping from beneath him. Safer? He repeated, his voice breaking. What are you talking about? Before Naina could respond, the sound of a door creaking open from upstairs echoed through the house, followed by the soft patter of footsteps. Ravi's head snapped in the direction of the sound. Could it be? His heart leaped into his throat as he ran toward the stairs, his pulse racing with hope. But when he reached the top, his steps faltered. There, standing at the end of the hallway, was a small figure. Mira. Ravi's breath caught in his chest, relief flooding through him in an overwhelming wave. She was safe. She was standing right there. Mira, he cried, his voice full of emotion as he rushed to her side. Thank God, you're okay. But as he approached her, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. Mira's eyes were vacant, empty of the fear and panic he had expected to see. Instead, there was a strange calmness to her, too calm for a little girl who had been missing. She didn't move, didn't react to him at all. Mira? Ravi said again, softer this time, kneeling down to her level. Sweetheart, where have you been? What's going on? Are you hurt? Mira didn't answer. She simply stared at him, her gaze distant and unblinking. It was as if she didn't recognize him at all. Ravi's heart clenched painfully in his chest. This wasn't his daughter, not the one he knew. Naina, what did you do to her? Ravi demanded, his voice shaking with fear. He stood up, his eyes narrowing at Naina, who had appeared at the top of the stairs behind him, watching the scene unfold with an unnervingly calm expression. She's fine, Ravi, Naina said softly. She's just adjusting. It's not easy for a little girl to understand what's happening, but she'll get there. She just needed some time. Ravi felt his blood run cold. What was Naina talking about? What was happening to his daughter? His mind raced with the terrifying possibilities. Had Mira been locked away? Had she been manipulated, controlled somehow? Mira, Ravi whispered, his heart breaking as he knelt beside her again, gently cupping her face in his hands. Please, baby, tell me what happened. Are you okay? But Mira didn't answer. She just stood there, her body stiff and unmoving. Ravi's mind spun as the truth slowly began to settle in. Something was deeply wrong. Mira wasn't the same. Naina had done something to her, something he couldn't understand, but he could see the results in the blank stare that had replaced his daughter's once lively eyes. Why won't she talk? Ravi's voice cracked with emotion as he turned to Naina. "What have you done to her?" Naina took a step forward, her eyes glinting with something cold and cruel. "I've given her what she needed, Ravi," she said, her voice so soft it made his skin crawl. "She's just been given a different perspective, that's all." Ravi's mind was reeling. "A different perspective," he repeated, incredulous. "She's just a child, Naina. She doesn't need a different perspective. She needs her father." But Naina only smiled, the smile of someone who had won a battle. "She'll come around, Ravi," she said, her words laced with something darker than Ravi had ever seen. "In time, she'll understand." Ravi's heart sank as the reality of the situation began to set in. His daughter wasn't just lost. She was being controlled, manipulated by Naina. And the terrifying part was that Ravi had no idea how to stop it. He had no idea how to save Mira from the twisted web Naina had spun around her. And as he stood there, helpless, he realized just how dangerous Naina truly was. She wasn't just his wife's replacement. She was a threat to everything he held dear. Ravi stood there, feeling the weight of his daughter's emptiness press down on him. Mira was just standing there, her eyes cold and unblinking, like a doll with no life inside. His heart shattered with every moment that passed without her saying a single word. His mind raced, spinning with questions, with confusion. But there was one truth that was sinking in deeper with every passing second. Something had happened to Mira. Something terrible. The quiet between father and daughter was deafening. Every corner of the room seemed to echo with the silence. Ravi reached out once more to his daughter, his hands trembling as he gently placed them on her shoulders, hoping she would react, hoping she would look at him, show some sign of recognition, of life. But she didn't. Naina's voice broke through the heavy silence, low and soft, like a whisper that sent chills crawling down Ravi's spine. "Mira's not the same as she was, Ravi," she said, her tone almost tender. "She's seen things now. Things you couldn't imagine." Ravi turned sharply to face Naina, his anger flaring. "What have you done to her?" His voice was barely controlled, but the question hung in the air like a heavy fog. "Tell me the truth, Naina. What did you do to my daughter?" Naina didn't flinch. She didn't even seem surprised at his outburst. Instead, she just stood there, almost as if waiting for him to realize something. "She's not your daughter anymore, Ravi," Naina said, almost as if she were stating a simple fact. "She's learned things, seen things that she can't unsee. She's had a revelation, one that only a few people ever understand. And that's why she's so different now." Ravi's chest tightened as he processed her words. "A revelation," he repeated, his voice cracking with disbelief. "What are you talking about?" "This isn't a revelation, Naina. This is wrong." But Naina only shook her head, her expression unreadable. "You still don't understand, do you? You think this is all just some game, some trick, but it's not. It's just what happens when you open your eyes to the truth. And Mira," she glanced at his daughter, "she's opened hers." Ravi felt like the ground was slipping out from under him. His head spun, trying to grasp the depth of what Naina was saying. Mira, his precious little girl, wasn't just scared. She wasn't just quiet or withdrawn. She had been changed. Changed by something Naina had done, something Ravi didn't understand. "She's not herself anymore, Ravi," Naina continued, her voice almost pitying now. "And that's the way it has to be. You don't see it, but she's stronger this way. She'll be better for it in time." Ravi shook his head desperately. "This isn't strength, Naina," he said, his voice low with emotion. "This is manipulation. You've done something to her, something terrible, and I won't let you get away with it." For the first time since they had started speaking, Naina's expression flickered. There was the briefest glimpse of something. Fear, perhaps, or maybe doubt. But it was gone almost as soon as it appeared, replaced by that cold, empty smile. "I didn't do anything to her, Ravi," Naina said, her voice too calm, too controlled. "I only showed her the way. She's just learning. You'll see, she'll be fine. She just needs time to adjust. Ravi's mind raced. Time to adjust. What did that even mean? How could time fix what had been done to his daughter? How could time erase the cold, empty look in Mira's eyes? He had to do something. He had to take her away from this. But how could he? Naina had control over everything, over his daughter's mind, and Ravi didn't know how to fight it. He had no idea where to start. Ravi turned his attention back to Mira. She hadn't moved since the moment he first found her at the top of the stairs. She was still just standing there, her body stiff, her eyes vacant. It was as though she was trapped in a place far beyond his reach, a place that Ravi couldn't follow. "Mira," he whispered softly, hoping to reach her somehow. "Please, baby, please look at me." But Mira didn't react. She didn't even blink. Ravi's throat tightened, his eyes filling with tears as he realized just how far he had fallen from the daughter he once knew. His little girl, the girl who used to laugh and play, the girl who used to run to him with a smile on her face, was gone, and he had no idea how to bring her back. Ravi looked at Naina, his eyes burning with hatred and helplessness. "What did you do to her?" he repeated, his voice hoarse with emotion. "What happened to my daughter?" Naina only shook her head again, her smile never faltering. "You wouldn't understand, Ravi," she said, her voice almost soft, as if she were speaking to a child. "But she will. Eventually, she'll understand. She'll see the world like I do." Ravi's blood ran cold. The terror in his chest grew stronger. What had Naina done to his little girl? What had she seen that had caused her to become this empty shell of the person she once was? And how could Ravi possibly fix this? Ravi's heart pounded in his chest as the night stretched on, heavy with uncertainty and fear. He sat in the living room, watching Mira from across the room, desperately hoping for some sign of recognition. He knew his daughter was in there somewhere. She had to be. But no matter how much he tried to reach her, she remained motionless, her vacant stare fixed on the wall, her body stiff and unyielding. Naina's words echoed in his mind, each one twisting like a dagger. "She will see the world like I do." What did that even mean? What had Naina done to her? How had she turned his loving, happy little girl into this shadow of a person? Ravi clenched his fists, his mind spinning with possibilities, none of them good. He needed to act, but every step he took felt like he was walking through thick mud, unsure of where to go or how to save Mira from whatever had a hold of her. The doorbell rang, breaking the tense silence in the house. Ravi startled, his heart skipping a beat. He wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, he rose to his feet, his eyes flicking nervously toward Mira. She didn't move. The doorbell rang again, more urgently this time. Without thinking, Ravi rushed to the door. He opened it, half expecting to find a stranger or perhaps even Naina, but instead, it was a figure he recognized. Inspector Arjun, the man who had helped him in the past when things had seemed normal. His face was grim, his eyes scanning the house with a look of concern. "Ravi," Arjun said, his voice low and serious. "I need to speak with you." Ravi stepped back, allowing the officer into the house. "What's going on, Arjun? Is something wrong?" The officer paused, glancing at Mira, who was still sitting motionless in the corner. He sighed, lowering his voice even further. "I've been getting reports from the neighborhood, Ravi. People have been talking, saying they've seen Naina acting strangely lately. I thought you should know." Ravi's stomach sank. "What do you mean, acting strangely?" Arjun looked uncomfortable. "There have been whispers about Naina being involved in something dark, something none of us have seen before. People say she's been speaking to strangers late at night, giving them things, receiving things in return. I don't know what's going on, but it's not right. I think she's hiding something." Ravi's mind raced. Could it be true? Could Naina have been doing something that had affected Mira? That would explain so much, the sudden change in Mira's behavior, her silence, the emptiness in her eyes. "What are you suggesting?" Ravi asked, his voice shaking with both fear and anger. "I'm suggesting," Arjun said, looking around the house as if the walls themselves could be listening, "that Naina might be involved in something dangerous. And it's possible that she's using Mira to get what she wants." Ravi's breath caught in his throat. The thought of Naina manipulating Mira, using her to accomplish some dark goal, made his blood run cold. "I need you to trust me on this, Ravi," Arjun continued, stepping closer. "We need to find out what's going on with Naina. We need to figure out how deep this goes." Ravi nodded, his eyes already darting to the door. "What do you want me to do?" Arjun's gaze softened. "Stay close to Mira, Ravi. Don't let Naina get anywhere near her. If what I'm thinking is true, your daughter is in danger. The truth might be more horrifying than you realize." Ravi's heart pounded harder now, the urgency of the moment striking him. "I'll protect her," he said, his voice firm. "I'll do whatever it takes." Arjun nodded, clapping him on the shoulder. "You're not alone in this, Ravi. We'll figure this out together." As Arjun left, Ravi stood in the doorway, looking out into the night, his mind whirling. Every moment felt like an eternity. His heart ached for his daughter, and he knew without a doubt that he couldn't wait any longer. He had to confront Naina, face whatever she was hiding, and get Mira back. He walked back to the living room, but Mira was still the same, sitting, staring into nothingness. He felt a sharp pang of sorrow. His daughter had been taken from him, and all he could do was fight to bring her back. With a newfound determination, Ravi walked toward Mira, kneeling down in front of her. He took her hand gently, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Mira, baby, please come back to me. I'm here. I won't let her take you from me." For the first time in days, he saw the faintest flicker in her eyes, a small twitch in her hand. Ravi's breath caught in his throat. She was still there. She hadn't completely disappeared. But it was a fragile hope, one that Ravi knew he couldn't take for granted. The battle wasn't over. Naina was still out there, still hiding something from him, still controlling Mira in ways he didn't fully understand. And Ravi had to be ready for whatever came next. As he looked at his daughter, he promised himself that he wouldn't stop fighting. No matter what the truth was, he would protect her from it. He would find a way to save her from whatever darkness Naina had brought into their lives. The clock was ticking, and Ravi knew that every moment mattered. The rain was pouring outside. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up the house in short, bright moments. Inside, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Ravi sat on the edge of Mira's bed, holding her small hand. Her eyes were open now, blinking, watching, but she still didn't speak. It had been days since that moment. The moment she cried out before he drank the tea. The moment she saved his life. And now, she was silent again. Naina had disappeared the night the police confronted her. She had screamed, cried, denied everything. But deep down, Ravi knew she wasn't innocent. She had tried to hurt him. And even worse, she had tried to control Mira. Use her, silence her. The officers had found hidden journals, strange powders, and videos Naina had secretly recorded. Everything pointed to one truth. She was obsessed. Obsessed with keeping Ravi to herself. Jealous of his bond with Mira. Afraid Mira would one day replace her in his heart. But Mira had known. Somehow, even when she couldn't speak, her heart had spoken louder than any voice ever could. Ravi looked at her now. She looked so small in the bed. Her eyes stared at the ceiling, and for a moment, he felt like giving up. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice shaking. "I didn't see it. I didn't protect you. I should have known she wasn't what she pretended to be." Suddenly, a tear slipped down Mira's cheek. Ravi froze. She moved. Her hand gently gripped his, and for the first time in weeks, her lips parted. She didn't speak a full sentence, but she mouthed something. Slowly, carefully. "Safe. Now." Ravi's eyes widened. His heart nearly stopped. "Mira?" he said softly, bending close to her face. She blinked once, twice. Her tiny mouth moved again. "Safe." Tears rolled down Ravi's face. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he would never let go. "Yes, my baby. Yes, you're safe now. I promise. No one will hurt you again. Never." Mira's fingers reached up, slowly brushing against his cheek. Then she did something she hadn't done in a long, long time. She smiled. It was small, weak, but it was real. The storm outside began to fade. The thunder grew softer. It was as if the whole world had been waiting for this moment. The police later confirmed that Nana had fled the city, but she couldn't hide forever. They would find her. Justice would come. But Ravi wasn't thinking about that now. All he cared about was his daughter. The little girl who had seen everything, who had been brave when he wasn't, who had saved his life, not with words, but with love. The house was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the peace of healing. Ravi lay next to Mira, her hand still in his. He looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "We're going to be okay. You and me." Mira didn't answer with words, but she squeezed his hand gently. And that was enough. The camera fades on their hands locked together. Father and daughter, stronger than ever, finally free from the nightmare that had nearly torn them apart.